You're listening to the Nourish Child Podcast, episode number 17. Lunchbox packing. I've got an app for that, with Gillian Fein of La La Lunchbox. In today's episode, I interview Gillian Fein from La La Lunchbox and La La Breakfast. She's created an app for meal planning lunches and breakfast, one that you can't refuse. But on top of that, she's an incredible entrepreneur, and we're going to hear her story today. Gillian's on a mission to raise the next generation of healthy eaters. You can find today's show notes at www.jillcastle.com/017.
Welcome to the Nourish Child Podcast, a show about childhood nutrition, feeding kids, and dealing with the ups and downs of growing a healthy child. Here's your host, registered dietitian and childhood nutrition expert, Jill Castle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nourish Child Podcast. I'm Jill Castle, your host, and today I am speaking with Gillian Fein of La La Lunchbox. She's going to tell us her story of how she became an entrepreneur, as well as how she has created an app that tackles the arduous chore of packing lunches and making breakfast in the morning. So if that's part of your pain point, daily chores that drive you a little bit crazy, you'll love this show because Gillian is making life easier for lots of parents. Now, you've heard my story about packing lunches, and I do still do it. I have two kids who are athletes and go to high school now, and we do a mix of lunch packing and lunch buying from school. But over the years, packing lunches for 4 kids can be a real chore. And one of the worst things a parent, or even myself, one of the worst things to see is that lunchbox coming home with food still in it. And as a dietitian, for me, it was always painful to see the healthiest foods coming home, the vegetables, or the great source of protein that I packed, or the dairy item that I included. That was always hard to swallow. As you know, also, I interviewed Holly Granger earlier in the season, and she talked to us about packing lunch boxes, healthy lunch boxes for little ones who might be going to preschool or daycare. So this show sort of piggybacks on that in a way that helps complement packing a healthy lunchbox for school-aged children. But I think what you'll really find in this episode is not only does the La La Lunchbox app make it easier for the parents, there is a secondary benefit that happens when you allow your child to be front and center in the food choice, food selection endeavor for lunch and for breakfast. What happens is that there is an investment that child has made in choosing their lunch or their breakfast. With that investment, children can really be motivated to go ahead and eat what they chose. So that's sort of that side dish that happens when you let children be a part of the food choice and be a part of planning their meals. Hey, Gillian, welcome to the Nourish Child Podcast.
Hey, Jill, thanks.
I'm so glad you're
here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here as well. I know you're one busy lady, and I really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me today. And I think we'll go ahead and just dive on in if it's okay with you. I know a lot of my listeners will be very interested in hearing your story, and I thought perhaps you could just give us a little sort of synopsis about you, yourself, your family, and what life is like for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'm Gillian Fein, and my company is called La La Lunchbox. We have meal planning apps for kids, and I am a mom of 3. My kids are now 10, 6, and 4, and I am an entrepreneur, which makes things a little crazy, but always fun and interesting. So I guess a little bit about myself. I have an MBA and a background in public health marketing. I launched my first app, Lala Lunchbox, about 4.5 years ago, and it came out of a need in my own home to provide a balanced school lunch for my oldest child that she would enjoy and eat and keep her satisfied throughout the day. So before I launched Lala Lunchbox, I worked on the business side of public health at a facility here in New York City. And I can vividly recall walking the pediatric halls and watching as one day a parent bought a 7-Up from a vending machine in the waiting room, and don't even get me started on why that's there in the first place.
Right.
But she filled up her toddler's baby bottle with it before seeing the pediatrician. And I realized at that moment that while my job was really rewarding and challenging in many ways, I wanted to be on the health side of health and not the sick side.
I love how you just said that, because oftentimes we think of healthcare as the sick side, and our efforts could be probably in many ways better utilized on promoting the health side, which I completely appreciate that sentiment. Now,
I think prevention is so important. So,
yeah.
I mean, if there are ways that we can get better messaging out there, that can teach families about, why that might not be advantageous to put 7-Up in a 2-year-old's baby bottle, or, a million different iterations of that same concept, that for me is where I wanted to be.
Right.
So that coincided with the time when my oldest daughter was in pre-K, and she needed to take a packed lunch to school every day. And I was pregnant with my son at the time. But I grew up in a food house. So my mom is a food writer and a cookbook author, and owned a cooking school when I was a little kid. So food and cooking and nourishment has always been just part of my DNA. And I want my kids to be invested in food in the same way. So the first iteration of Lala Lunchbox was just a paper project for me and my daughter. And I had spent several years before getting my MBA as a user interface designer and a graphic designer. So I just put those Photoshop skills to work and created something on paper, like a very visual based kind of menu. And my daughter and I would sit together on the weekends, and she would choose foods from 4 categories: fruits, vegetables, proteins, and snacks. And she would plan her meals for the week. It was kind of amazing. And we would go to the grocery store to shop from that. And we never had arguments in the morning about what's for lunch, because it was already taken care of.
That's amazing. And she was 4, Gillian?
Yeah, she was 4.5.
Wow. That's so great. Yeah, I really think that, involving kids, and I think your app, Lala Lunchbox, does this so well, but including kids in that decision-making is so empowering for them, and it is really life-saving sometimes in the relationship with the parent. That dynamic between the parent and the child, and that struggle can get so out of control over food, and that's the last struggle, really, that you want to have with children, is something that revolves around food.
I mean, it also, yes, absolutely. It also gets really hairy in the mornings, with parents going to work and kids going to school, and there's frequently not an extra 10 minutes to spare on the argument of what's for lunch. So, what I saw with this little experiment at the time was, she picked it, I packed it, she ate it, and that was that.
That's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah. it was working so beautifully. And, all of a sudden I started getting calls from other parents. Like parents would volunteer in the classroom at lunchtime to help out. And I started getting all these calls, saying, hey, can you make me a lunchbox menu? And hey, can I have one of those? And I thought, gee, maybe there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a leap of faith and decided to create an app. And, I guess the rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
So
a good app in that as well. And so, tell my listeners, because I think a few of them might not be familiar with Lala Lunchbox. So sort of describe the app and all the features so people have a really good idea how to use it, what it does, and how it involves children and the parent.
Sure. So Lala Lunchbox is a meal planning app. It's designed with kids in mind. So it's really simple, but really powerful. So it lays out the basic components of a lunchbox. And for us, those are fruits, vegetables, proteins, and snacks. And it has little icons of each food. And we've got a really robust food library packed in there already. And children can scroll through and feed a hungry monster, and they get to choose what color the monster is, and they can set up their lunchbox avatar, and they select meals by dragging and dropping food icons into the hungry monster's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that for each day of the week, and their choices become a grocery list for parents.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is make the meal planning process fun and engaging for kids, but a really useful tool for parents also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that's it in a nutshell. It's really simple, but it's really powerful, and it lets, kids get engaged in the process. It helps them, quote unquote, play with their food.
Mm-hmm.
And it still allows parents to retain full control over what's available for their kids to choose from.
Mm-hmm. And are there lunchbox lists that gets created within that app, sort of pre-combined lunches that kids have had before, or is it always a new lunch that they can generate?
Yeah, absolutely. You can save favorites.
Great.
And, that was an important feature because kids do have their go-tos, and
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to make it really easy for them to create and to use over and over. For kids who want to choose something fresh every day, fresh choice every day, they can do that too. But there are a couple of features that were really important to add in to the app in addition to that. And that was being able to customize how many items are allowable in the lunchbox. So
Mm-hmm.
I ran some focus groups when we were designing the app in the first place, and some parents told me that their kids go to school half a day, once a week or twice a week, and for that they really only needed one item. And then other days of the week, they would stay for aftercare or after school activities and need more items in the lunchbox. And so parents are able to customize the allowable number of items between 1 and 8.
Okay.
And we limited at 8 because I just found in my focus group testing that more than 8 really just didn't happen all that frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed like a good place to stop.
Right. And what's the age range for the app? Can it go all the way up to teenager, or is it more ideal for a certain age group?
I have people who have emailed me over the years who have said, I'm a working person in my 20s, and I'm using this. It's handy. And that thrills me. Our sweet spot is really like 4 to 10.
Yeah.
So those elementary school years are
Great.
really where we see the most usage.
Right. It occurs to me, I do quite a bit of work with picky eaters, and it occurs to me that one of the things that I do, especially when I'm working with an extreme picky eater, so we're really much more structured in how we go about trying new foods and mapping out what those foods would be during the week and setting up a real formal challenge. And one of the things that I hear over and over again from the parents is that lunch is the hardest thing, that coming up with a lunch that their child will eat is a real struggle. And so oftentimes what I'm doing is basically the paper version of what you're doing with your app, which is taking the list of this picky eater's foods that he or she will eat, can tolerate, that are not on the off the list, they're on the safe list. And again, just having them circle off choices that would help them create a healthy meal, categorized similar to what your app does. But it does occur to me that this might be something that would really work for those extreme picky eaters and even just the general picky eaters, because they can save their preferences.
Right. So saving the preferences would be key in that scenario. But what I have heard from users over the years is that the app, because of the visual nature of it, it helps kids expand beyond what they would otherwise think of as their safe foods. And that's because when kids are able to see other options, they tend to be more willing to give them a try. So I got an email from a dad recently that said his daughter was now packing broccoli in her lunch because it looked, interesting while scrolling through the app. And, because she chose it, she felt more empowered to actually eat it and give it a try. And then discovered that, wow, this tastes pretty good. And so now, that's been added to her safe list of, foods that she's willing to eat over and over again. And, that thrills me. I think having visual options can really help kids get out of a picky eating rut. And I think also, giving them the responsibility and the empowerment is hugely beneficial there also. Yeah. So,
well, definitely having a picture of the food, because so many times when we as adults suggest a food to a child, the child may not have any idea what that food looks like. And so just having that picture can really be that first step to accepting something brand new in their diet.
Right. And even just the willingness to give it a go, I think, is a huge step forward. So, you may choose bell peppers, and that's not something you've ever chosen before, and then you discover, like, gee, actually I don't like these at all. And then you don't choose that again. But having that visual option is really important for kids.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to summarize sort of the main problem you're trying to help parents solve, what would you say that is?
Well, I think lunch is a pain point. School lunch is something that we talk about all year round. And there's a massive outcry for healthy, delicious lunches that kids will actually eat. And, parents don't always know where to start. And they don't want to see a lunchbox full of food at the end of the day. And, why is this such a problem? Well, because it means their kids are hungry and they can't learn properly. And also because that uneaten food means that food is wasted and money is wasted. And so what we are doing is helping to raise the next generation to be healthy eaters. And we're doing that by empowering kids to be part of the process. And by being part of the process, we're helping them to understand the building blocks of a healthy meal. So over time, thanks to the visual construct of the app, kids will solidly understand, what makes up a healthy lunch. And that's what we're in it for. So the long-term healthy habits and understanding of, what's going to make kids healthy and feel great. That's what we're in it for. And, as a side perk, we've built in, we've made it handy for parents by helping to keep them organized.
Great. It's great stuff. Now, I know that I want to understand how La La Lunchbox has grown since your very first concept of it and your first pass at the app. But I also want to talk about, just being an entrepreneur and a mom with 3 kids and what that really looks like. So it's your choice which one you want to answer first. Okay. The entrepreneur question or how your business has grown?
Well, I'll start with the business. The app has grown in ways that I could never have predicted. It's now in the top 0.1% of most downloaded apps on iTunes, and that's awesome. Thrills me.
Yeah, that's great.
I never could have seen that, but lunch really is a painful thing for families. So we've gotten some amazing reviews over the years. We've been written up in the New York Times and the Washington Post and Chicago Tribune and USA Today and Parents Magazine and some really phenomenal places, and that really helps other families learn about what we are doing. We've also been able to add in new features and new functionality over the years. So going on user feedback, we've been able to add things that users want. And most recently, we have added some new downloadable food bundles that I'm super excited about.
Tell us about those.
Well, we did it just in response to the ever-changing landscape around families and food. Like in my house, we are nut-free, and that's because I've got a nut allergy. My youngest is allergic to dairy, so she's dairy-free. And, that can be a struggle, like coming up with new ideas to present to my kids about what they can eat that satisfies all of their requirements. So I worked with Holly Granger, who I know you hosted on a recent podcast.
Yes, I did. In the show notes, I'll include that link as well. But yes, Holly's great.
Yeah, I have a ton of respect for her. And she came up with some really amazing ideas for new food libraries for us. And those are dairy-free, nut-free, gluten-free, and vegetarian.
Great.
And we also have a kosher library on the app. And each bundle contains about 25 new ideas for parents and kids. And they really provide just a fresh injection of lunch packing inspiration to meet a variety of lifestyles and eating habits. And, they're not all connected to recipes per se. These are really just simple sentence recipes. So things that are recognizable by picture and by name, and that parents can easily put together. So you don't need a master's in Pinterest, or you don't need to be a chef in order to make these. And I think Holly did an amazing job at coming up with some really creative, healthy ideas that meet these lifestyles.
So what would be sort of an example? Give us an example of what maybe a nut-free item in that library would be, or a vegetarian item in the library.
Sure. So in our nut-free library, we've got banana sunflower seed roll-ups, sunflower seed butter roll-ups. So that's basically just a tortilla, whole wheat tortilla, smeared with sunflower seed butter, which is an amazing nut-free alternative.
Right.
And you roll it with a banana and cut it like sushi.
Perfect.
And it's fun to eat and delicious and healthy.
Easy to make. Yeah.
That's right. And let's see, in our vegetarian bundle, we've got beans and rice, or a bean burrito, or like a hummus pinwheel, which is kind of the same concept as the banana sunflower seed butter roll up, and that's just hummus and veggies rolled up in a tortilla and cut. And let's see, in our gluten-free one that I'm really thrilled about is our bunless BLT. So we've got lettuce and tomato and bacon, and the lettuce is used in place of bread.
Gotcha.
So that's fun to eat. And let's see, one of them that I love in our dairy-free is a black bean burger. And, you could make these on your own, or there's a number of companies that provide these frozen, and you could make them ahead of time and pack them in the lunchbox. So,
great.
We spend time really looking at what's available in the marketplace and looking at what parents are eating and packing, and came up with this really robust list to meet those needs.
Sure, that's great. And your general app is free, correct?
Yes.
But the specialty bundles, those are an additional charge. Is that correct?
Yes. So those are $2.99 each, and they're yours forever. It's a one-time download, and they get added to what is already contained in our library. But I want to make a note just to say that as an allergic person, it was really important for me when I was creating the app in the first place to make it customizable. So if you don't see anything that you like in the library, which would be challenging because there's so much in there, but if there's something that you want to add, you can add it at any time. You can add it with a photo, you can add it with a description, you can remove it at any time. And if there are things in the library that you can't have in your house for whatever reason, you can dim those out, and they're never going to be available to your kids to choose either.
That's great. That's great. It also sounds like it would be very useful for families. My son has a tree nut allergy too, so we're nut free as well. And it sounds like it would be very useful for families who might have to supply snack or a party treat to school to even know, what some of those nut free alternatives would be, just to even give them ideas.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because these aren't just lunchbox ideas. These are ideas that parents can use for dinner, for potlucks, for parties, for really anything, because they're not kid foods, right? They're foods that kids can eat and enjoy, but they're not what necessarily qualifies as just food for kids.
Right.
And that was important because I think I respect kids' taste buds, and I think that they can vary wildly. I've seen that in my own house. My three kids have very different palates, and what might work for one kid might not work for another, might not work for an adult in my house, whatever. So it's important to see that variety. But for us, the customization piece was really critical.
Yeah, I think that it's more and more the norm that kids are all individually so different within families, from what they eat to the sport they love. And I always say I have 4 of my own kids, and I never had children who all wanted to play the same sport or all eat the same thing. Although I fed them all the same thing, I gave them the ability to choose from what was served. But I think kids are just amazing individuals, and those taste buds blossom and grow and change over time as well. So there's always that ability, and it sounds like your app allows for this, the ability to adopt something that's new that they've not liked previously and change their taste buds.
Right. So I love Ellen Satter's philosophy that parents choose the what and the when and the where, and kids choose the whether and how much. And that's really built into the app. So naturally at school, and the when and the where are already determined. Right. But as for the what, our food library is completely customizable. So parents are in full control of that. And what we've seen is that when kids make, those choices, when they are in charge of their meal planning, the whether and how much is really impressive. Mm-hmm. So they're excited about it. And, remember, the lunchroom is a really social place. So it's important to give kids confidence with their food so that they're at home and feeling good when they're in the lunchroom and surrounded by their peers. And, it's important for them to feel good about the food that they're eating. Mm-hmm. And having them participate in the process, I think, is an excellent way to do just that.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. Now, what about Lala Breakfast? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, Lala Breakfast came out of a need in my own home also, because I was 29 months pregnant with my third kid and trying to figure out, how life was going to go. And mornings are just busy getting mm-hmm. kids out the door and getting to work and all of that. And I just was finding that my kids were like, "Oh, Mom, what's for breakfast? I don't want that. What else do you have?" And I just couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to my mom about it one day, and gosh, aren't moms the best? Mm-hmm. My mom was like, why don't you apply the same concept of Lala Lunchbox to Lala Breakfast and see how it goes, mm-hmm. and have your kids just decide what they want for breakfast in advance and then see how that works with the arguments. And my God, did that work. So we did it on paper and as like a beta test, mm-hmm. and it was working like a dream. So I was working with my developers and said, hey, let's make this happen. So it's the same concept. So kids choose their breakfasts in advance, mm-hmm. and it really helps parents to be prepared to have those extra few minutes in the morning, because mornings are hard enough. Mm-hmm. And so, kids choose from produce, proteins, eggs, and grains for breakfast. Mm-hmm. And, you don't have to choose one from each category. There are no requirements there, but it just helps parents to be more organized in the morning, mm-hmm. and it helps kids feel a little more confident and calm about what to expect. So they've chosen it. It's a done deal. They're excited about it, and it's not an argument in the morning.
Right. Right. So do you remind the kids what they chose, or?
I don't even.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes my kids will be like, wait, did I get that? And I'm like, yep. And I just pull it up on the app and I'm like, yep, see that Wednesday morning you wanted, eggs.
Yeah.
So, it's not 100% smooth, but it's 100% smoother than it would be without it.
Right. So when do they make their choices? Do they sit down on Sunday and do the app, or do you have sort of a routine around that?
Yeah, it's usually on Saturday, just mm-hmm. because that gives me more time to shop from it. And, sometimes if I'm out on a Saturday and I've done a big grocery shop, I will say to my kids, look, I've already done the grocery shopping, and I just adjust what's available to them based on what I already have.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it can work both ways.
Sure.
So, on the one hand, my kids can choose and I can shop from that. Mm-hmm. Or on the other hand, I shop and my kids choose from what I already have.
Right. Just sounds idyllic, really. Sounds like a dream.
Well, it's working. So,
yeah.
And, I'm thrilled to see that it's working for other families.
Right.
And that makes me happy as an entrepreneur and, as a parent and just as a person on a mission to help raise the next healthy generation. It thrills me to be making any impact whatsoever.
Sure. It's important work, no doubt. So, okay, moms might be listening and thinking, gosh, I've got a great idea. I should go for this and create something or turn it into a business. what advice or I guess maybe even warnings would you give moms who might be interested in pursuing, life as a mom and an entrepreneur?
Well, gosh, I've been an entrepreneur since I'm a kid. It's just like in my soul. Mm-hmm. I have had I was that kid who had a million small businesses. Mm-hmm. And I bred hamsters at one point when I was 13. And, mm-hmm. I think as an adult, getting started as an entrepreneur, and especially with a family, for me, the most important part of it has been having the full support of my husband. Mm-hmm. So he is my number one cheerleader. He is my number one sounding board. And, I could not have made this leap without his confidence in mm-hmm. my ability to do so. So mm-hmm. That's first and foremost. I would say it's really important to do some focus grouping or, figure out if there's a need in the marketplace for mm-hmm. whatever the idea is, and, spend some time gathering data, figuring out what it's going to take to start the business, what resources you're going to need, whose expertise you can call on. When I launched this app, it was important to me to get the green light of a dietitian and mm-hmm. a pediatrician. Mm-hmm. And so I had those conversations. I reached into my network and had conversations with a bunch of folks, and that was real validation for mm-hmm. me. So when you're starting a business, it's important to think about whose green lighting you might need in order to provide important validation for the product. And then I guess, learning how to set aside the time to separate work and family. Mm-hmm. And that's an ongoing challenge. I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
I want to spend time with my kids, and I want to be available to go to school plays and, all of that. But I need to get work done. And so it's important for me to have the discipline to know when it's work time and when it's not work time.
Right. It's a constant juggle. For me, anyways. I don't want to project onto you, but for me, it's a constant juggle. Sort of blocking out time and being productive and not distracted and getting things done, but then disengaging completely. And
it can get crazy.
Yeah.
3 kids and a business is crazy. I can't imagine with 4.
Yeah.
You're a superstar.
No.
But I have noticed, I love my job, and I love the industries that my job touches upon. Mm-hmm. And what I have seen over time that, just absolutely thrills me is that I've been having some really interesting conversations with my kids over the years about topics that are so meaningful to me mm-hmm. that, I might not otherwise have had the opportunity to have. Right. And that's great. So as a mom, I relish that. Mm-hmm. And as an entrepreneur, hearing my kids' feedback, and definitely I'm talking to my kids' friends when they're over for play dates.
Sure.
That's been great too.
Market research.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, I think these apps have built in the opportunity for families to have conversations around food where they might not otherwise exist. Mm-hmm. I've seen it in my own home. So, for example, parents have said to me, I can't hand over my iPhone to my kid to pack a lunch. He would only choose cookies. Mm-hmm. and I get that. And that can be really stressful. And we haven't added any category specific limits on the app, and that's intentional mm-hmm. because I see it as a parenting opportunity.
Sure.
And what I saw in my own home when my son first started using the app, and he totally tried to pull that, and I was like, Remy, what would happen if you packed only cookies for an entire week? And he looked at me with this sheepish grin, and he understood, right? But would we otherwise have the opportunity to talk about that if he hadn't done that on the app?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
So a parent has the opportunity to look at the grocery list and see the choices that his or her child made. And that's an amazing moment to talk to kids about the consequences of food and healthy habits. And so I've seen it in my own home, but I've also heard about it from users, and it's hard. Kids, they want those cookies, and it takes a long time to teach them, but I find that they are sponges in so many ways, and it's a pleasure to see that growth.
Absolutely. You bring up a really good point that traditionally parents have had control over all the food, the planning, the meal planning, the cooking. And I think what just to piggyback on what you're saying, is what I enjoy seeing is that the tide is changing a little bit, and kids are getting much more involved in the cooking, in the meal planning, in the preparation. They're having much more of a voice and more of a say. And I think, and I've seen it happen, but I also believe that it really eases the whole job of feeding when it's more of a family affair than a parent-controlled endeavor.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And think about it when you're in a restaurant, right? You're looking at a menu and you know what your stomach is telling you. Imagine if somebody ordered for you all the time.
Right.
That could be frustrating.
Yes.
I mean, you're an adult and I'm an adult, and there's a different assumption for kids, but let's not discount that frustration.
Right.
That exists.
Right. Yes, and we all know when we when we get a little say in how our life is going, we all feel a little bit better, and I think that applies to kids as well.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been so great to have you on the show, Gillian. Is there anything else you want listeners to know? I know I want you to tell everybody where they can find Lala Lunchbox, Lala Breakfast, and how they can download that, and all those details.
Well, sure, and thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome.
So, Lala Lunchbox and Lala Breakfast are both available on iTunes. Lala Lunchbox is free to download, and Lala Breakfast is $1.99. And we are currently not yet available for Android, but we're in the process of figuring that out. And listeners can find me across all social media channels. So we post on Instagram, Lunches Every Day, and that's under Lala Lunchbox, and we're on Facebook, same account, and Twitter, and Pinterest, and I have a website and a blog that I post to occasionally with some recipes, and I look forward to interacting.
Awesome. Well, I will include all of those links in the show notes, and make sure that people can find you as quickly as they'd like to. I'm sure you're going to, and I hope you do, get a lot of new customers with Lala Lunchbox. I think it's going to be an amazing thing for families who don't yet know of this app. Gillian, thank you so much. Yes, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jill.
You're welcome. That's a wrap, friends. Wasn't it great to hear Gillian Fein talk about Lala Lunchbox and Lala Breakfast and her whole entrepreneurial journey? It's so inspiring. If you're somebody, a parent out there who has an idea, really the sky is the limit on what you can do with that. And so I hope Gillian's story inspired you to take that next step in your own entrepreneurial journey. And if you're a parent who is just looking to lighten your load around lunchbox packing and planning meals for lunch or meals for breakfast, give these apps a try. go ahead, go over to iTunes, download the La La Lunchbox app. It's free. Why not? You can give it a quick try and see if it works for your family. And if you like that, then go ahead and give La La Breakfast a try. Don't forget to head over and get the show notes at jillcastle.com/017. That's 017 for episode number 17. I will have the links and resources related to this show there for you. If you enjoyed today's episode, there are a few things you can do to help the Nourished Child podcast grow. Write a review on iTunes. Subscribe to the show. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Tuned In, and more. And one of the things that happens when you subscribe to the show is that the show shows up on your phone app every week. So every time I publish a new show, you will get alerted that there's something new to listen to, and you don't have to go search on iTunes or Android or Stitcher or anything like that anymore. It also helps if you could share the podcast on social media: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, wherever you hang out. Let your peers know about the Nourished Child podcast. The more parents that know about the show, the more informed and better at nourishing their child they will be. As always, I encourage you to grab that child in your life, big or small, and give them a loving squeeze today. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Nourished Child podcast, where the #1 goal is to help you grow a nourished child inside and out.